3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space. Okay, well, welcome to GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Don't forget to check us out at GrokTALK.com. We're also on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Ustream, YouTube, and we're on Facebook and Twitter. I got a lot of people in the room today.
Yeehaw!
It is. I got to turn all these microphones on. I got to see what mic you're on and what mic you're on. Starting here.
And we got somebody on the phone. Make sure she's there.
Are you there? Hello. All right, so we got Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers.
Hold it.
Kim
Stop.
Stop.
Technical considerations. Just a little. Push over.
That's not technical. That's just
over.
That's just you streaming.
I got to get you into the
He's
camera.
playing software engineer and doing a little right justify there.
All right.
Yeah, you need to move that way.
I got to do a little left justify
start again?
here.
It's a cozy Christmas picture.
There you go.
Skip
Thank
Murphy.
you.
Only move to the right, boys.
That's correct, Mrs.
There is no
Olsen.
justifying left. I understand.
Did we have Mike Rogers? Did I say Skip Murphy 3 times yet?
Yes.
Skip Murphy, Skip Murphy, Skip Murphy. That's
That
like
would be me.
Beetlejuice. Mike Rogers, Kim Gilbert, Scott Morales, Rick Olson, and company. We have a lot of people in the room. We have Susan Olsen on the phone, and we are here to talk to you about all the news and events and culture and things that are going on, and we had a list of stuff that we were going to talk about, but we're going to have to take a little side trip because something happened yesterday in Paris that is dominating the news and has taken up a lot of space, a lot of bandwidth, and it should, because it's a pretty tragic situation in Paris.
Put down your guns.
That's an immigration problem.
And it is an immigration problem, and
It's a horrible tragedy.
Really? I was talking to my wife about it last night. I said, well, first of all, nobody's armed, except for the bad people,
And,
right?
and the police.
And the police, and they're not there when it starts, so.
Mon Dieu, look at the anglicization of their culture. They don't run around with jackets that say gendarmerie anymore. They say police.
Yeah.
Ooh, I thought that was illegal in France to do that.
I was surprised.
Yeah, usually,
I'll tell you what, I just had the television on, which is really bad, but it appears that President Stompyfoot has declared that Paris is in fact not Cambridge, where he was easily able to identify those at fault.
Oh, well. Okay.
Has he actually come out and said
don't know who
extremist
did it.
Islam?
We don't know who did it. Yes.
we don't know who did
We
it.
need to reserve judgment. We're not sure. It's there's stuff going on.
We don't know what the motivation is.
Right.
Indeed, we do.
It could have been a lone wolf, right-wing Tea Party extremist.
I think it was the climate deniers.
You're right.
Climate
You're right.
deniers,
'Cause that is
yes.
the biggest problem.
Well, it did
Yes,
bring
indeed.
Al Gore's 24 hours of climate
It did.
chaos to a screeching
Again.
halt.
Duran did get to perform though.
Did they?
So they were on the stage and they did their set and
And then they turned the tower
They
off.
can
That's
say,
right.
you know what, we're dedicated. We worked through a terrorist attack.
That's right.
Well, I just have to quote this from the post I put up last night. From our POTUS, President of the United States, no challenge poses a greater threat to our future than climate change. Want to reconsider, sir?
There's a few people in Paris who might want to disagree with you.
Yeah, and then when he was talking with George Stephanopoulos, Georgie, another Democrat with a byline, said, "We have contained them." I don't think so anymore.
We've contained them to Paris, apparently.
I don't know. I think they're contained down in New Orleans right now.
Yeah. Oh.
Did you see the load that got dropped off there?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Enlighten us.
Oh, yes, the
67,000,
Syrians.
I think.
how many?
67,000.
67,000, I
or
believe.
7,000.
The number could be wrong, but you know what? 2's enough for me.
6 or 7,000 Syrians?
Refugees.
Oh, yeah,
right.
refugees, yes.
Between the ages of 18 and 30.
Right,
Male.
Mostly
Male.
male. Yeah, and the religion knows.
Correct.
Where have we heard this
Pieces.
before? All right, guys, I'm going to ask those of us who are armed, one way or another, rise.
Here I am.
Okay,
Can't
you're
see me,
set.
but
One,
Right. Not with me.
2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 people plus
I don't
Susan.
need to be.
Citizens.
Good on you. I like it.
Citizens, subjects.
wow.
When you guys pass a law so I can carry without having to crawl to a police chief and get a permit, otherwise
You can open carry.
I can open carry.
Yes, you can.
So-
Or you can wear a trench coat and carry a rifle under it. I mean, how stupid are these people?
I know.
The problem with trench coats is they think you're carrying something else under it. They think,
You just carry a shotgun on your back with the words Biden boomstick etched into the stock, and nobody will touch you. You're all
That's
set.
That's all it takes.
Well, fellas, this is serious. I mean, what was it, the Bad Boys movie? This stuff just got real.
Don's here.
Don's here.
We didn't know Don was coming. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Susan.
No, I said, this to quote Bad Boys, this stuff just got real.
It did.
It did.
You know, when France closes the borders 2 months after installing a turnstile, right?
Yeah.
And they close the borders and they say, that's it, no one else is coming in. That should get our attention. I don't know if they woke up or, and smelled the café au lait or what.
All the burning corpses, maybe.
Perhaps that as well.
Do you think, in your opinion, that I know there's certain aspects of the different populations in Europe who've already started erecting fences and walls and things? In your professional opinion as a world traveler, do you think that that's going to become the new norm? Do you think the rest of Europe's going to just say, all right, we're not going to be Paris?
Yeah, well, it's kind of not. It's not funny, but I was back in the day. I remember right after the Moroccan terrorists were doing their thing. I was headed to Paris from Brussels for a meeting, and I get into Paris. I don't know, late in the afternoon. Head to my hotel, get checked in, and the next day, before meetings start, I used to stay at a little place around from the Champs-Élysées and went over there to have some breakfast. And if you were seated on the sidewalk in an outdoor cafe, you could see heavily armed gendarmerie walking up and down the streets with, these selfie sticks?
Mm-hmm.
They had mirrors on them in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would go under everybody's seat on out there on the Champs-Élysées checking for bombs. You couldn't go into a shop, you couldn't go into an office without having your briefcase, your pocketbook, or whatever searched. And if you didn't look like most of the folks in Paris, they put you in a 9-point hold on the ground and checked you out. So people have very short memories.
Mm.
And that's the fear for me is, so soon we forget.
Yeah, in my day it was the Irish, and not all of the Irish, just a few demented ones.
Oh, those Irish.
Why is he looking at me when he
You're
says
Irish.
that? That attempted to blow
Wait. I'm going to take a shot at this. Murphy.
Yeah.
That
Stereotype. Political correctness.
attempted to blow up some landmarks in London.
It's not a safe space. We told you that.
Including Harrods Store, which at the time was where the fancy, fashionable, and westernized Arabs shopped. It was how things change, okay? You can't make this stuff up. And so, exactly, you bet you say the selfie sticks with mirrors on the end, Susan, and that's exactly what we had. Everywhere there was any kind of walled-off area, government buildings, military encampment, whatever, everybody going in had to show ID. Every car had to open the trunk. They ran around with the selfie sticks with mirrors looking underneath to make sure there was nothing unusual attached there, and so on and so forth.
Do they have any Starbucks in Paris?
Day did not carry man purses.
Did they have Starbucks in Paris? Because I hear those are safe spaces now.
Oh my.
If you're gay, it's a LTGBQRSTUV type deals.
Yeah.
Yes, we are not politically correct here at Planet Crime.
And if you don't want to say Merry Christmas, I think Trump is right on the money when he says it's time to boycott Starbucks.
Yeah, well, it's appropriate that they chose the color red.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to.
Well, we're back to red again.
Yes. And you know,
And by the way, I want to say
hang
thank
on
you.
while I put on a white beard. Ho, ho, ho. I got the
You'd be
stomach
at
By
going.
the way,
Bill's Jets game.
Yeah, Don has come in.
Hi, Don.
Don Ewing,
Don
the
Ewing.
top letter writer to editors in the state.
Yes.
The most erudite and notorious writer of letters to editors.
We're having all kinds of weird problems here with audio. All right.
well, I want to go to Starbucks for my red cup. You know, I got to have that red cup. You know, they write your name on it. People are saying, "Oh, just say your name is Merry Christmas." Well, you know, that's fine, but I was telling him my name was Holden my groin. So, you know, that usually works pretty well.
Well,
Holden.
so much for Holden. You're close to rule number 1.
How do you know his name isn't Holden? Could be.
No, that's the professor of doom that advises Obama on scientific matters.
All right. All right. We're going to take a short break. When we
That's
come back, we're
Coltrane,
going to
I
talk
think.
about the debate we just had. And just stick around and stay tuned. There's a whole ton of people here, and we're all having a lot of fun. And this is GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
I'm having some audio problems, if you hadn't noticed. This is GrokTALK. There's like 6,000 people here.
No, just 7.
Well, there's people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 plus the phone call. That's 9.
And one in the other room.
Oh, and Debbie's in the other room. Yeah.
But she's sleeping now.
So she's taking a little nap over there because she's heard it all. So
24/7.
we had a debate thing.
Nothing.
A debate.
A debate thing.
You have armed guards at the facilities too.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm just having conversations with your mic open. That's okay. No big deal.
No problem. So Don was asking what would all the searching for bombs with mirrors on selfie sticks do about guys with AK-47s? Well, as long as you've got armed guards to back up those mirrors with selfie sticks, you're fine. Because when they come rushing at you, yelling Allahu Akbar, you all turn as one and fire.
I've got a selfie stick.
or as they say in America, you know, translated in America, Aloha snack bar.
All right.
For the vultures.
Well, let's just get right to John Kasich, huh? Because he's the biggest ass in the debate.
That's what you're starting with?
Why not? Let's get past this stink and move forward from
The
there.
man with the perpetual frown.
I wrote somewhere in my notes Kasich's conservatism, Konservatism, the classic Comrade K.
Chairman
Actually, Jonathan Lord at Conservative Review, Skip posted this thing about the. Well, I'm going to read it because it plays into this. The formula is as simple as it is deadly. Take the left's view of any given issue, do a little less of it, and smile.
Right.
This is called being practical. A Bush mantra last night and a GOP moderate mantra always. This is exactly what Ronald Reagan called fraternal order, republicanism. It is exactly what Margaret Thatcher disdained as the socialist ratchet. It is Thatcher again, so-called conservatives pitching camp in the long march of the left.
It was also
the subject
known as the Wax
or
on the
issue
back
doesn't
bench.
matter. It could be amnesty. It could be bank bailouts, education, or taxes. The idea is always to start from the latest left-wing expansion of government and tinker with it rather than respect it outright. This is called, in the parlance of today's GOP, governing, and as thus defined, it has zero to do with conservatism.
Correct. And this is the big discussion that's now going to come to the top of the list in the Republican Party. Are we Democrat light? Do we just manage big government, or do we rip it asunder? And I'm glad.
I have an idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
I think that testosterone should be able to be sold over the counter.
I think it already is.
Yeah, along with our Republican repair kits. Who's going to take on the manufacture of those?
That would be me that I've got to get back on.
That would be a plastic spine and a pair of steel balls.
Yes.
Indeed.
In a package on it with a Grok bookmark down the side.
Yes.
All you need in one package.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that perplexes me is why do we always have these? In every cycle, first, remember when Dick Gephardt was running, how his father would deliver milk, and now we got Kasich. My father was a mailman. I mean,
Over and
what's
over
the
again.
deal here? Who cares what your father did? You're running for president.
Wait a minute, what about old man Sununu?
Oh, yes.
Chris is running. Come on.
Oh, well, he's running for governor. Governor.
Well, so did
His father was chief of staff.
Yep, Nome of the
Flew
North.
jets
And flew jets.
that he wasn't supposed to.
Right. Or took jet rides and perks he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, well, he got a jet ride home, didn't he?
He certainly did.
I don't have a jet sound effect. Maybe I do. Wait, I'll keep looking.
He was a jet setter.
He was a jet setter. Oh, look at you. Isn't that cute?
Oh, boy.
Let's see.
But I think... Go ahead,
I
Scott.
was going to say this friction that you were just talking about between the conservatives and just the Democrat light. That's nothing new. I mean, I was looking when he was talking. I looked over the shoulder. There's Bob Dole right there. I mean,
Bob Dole. What does Bob Dole think?
this has been going on for a while, and the problem is
well, since at least Roosevelt, anyway. Teddy, you know.
Teddy, right?
It's
Right,
Rockefeller's
all the way back to
fault.
progressive, right?
Right. He
One
was
of
the Progressive Party.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
come on.
Right.
John D.
Bull
Rockefeller
Moose.
started all this crap.
Yeah, and whenever they use the word practical or pragmatic, you know they're really talking about
Capitulate.
capitulating. Do you know that Kasich even said during this week's debate, "What about the children?" He actually said that. I haven't put that video clip up yet. I
Yeah.
did put up the clip of the Kelly File and Frank Luntz where he scored the lowest score ever
That was great.
on Luntz's meters.
Yeah, let's not deport children.
Yeah.
Or minors, or terrorists, or bad guys.
Yep.
Come on. Kasich is a moron. He just needs to go home.
Yep.
He does.
He's worse than that. He's a pious moron.
Yeah, he's
He's holier than thou.
He's
Right.
trying to
He's a
redefine the smile.
whiny, pious moron.
well, he's
Yeah.
throwing a tantrum because he believes it's his turn and he should be getting it. And so when
That's why he had Bob Dole. It was Bob Dole's turn, and he didn't get it. Then it was Mitt Romney's turn. He didn't get it. Now it's John's turn.
It was
right.
McCain's turn.
McCain, too.
And look at all those
whatever.
presidents we've had.
yeah, right.
And then Jeb Bush is touting that Bob Dole has endorsed him. I look at this
cares?
and go, in this climate, in this election year,
Why would you
this
do that?
Exactly. Why would you do
Well,
that?
that's like the Cantor endorsement, wasn't it? A few months ago,
The death knell.
Senator Cantor came out and endorsed Jeb. It's you got to be kidding me.
You know, in 2008, when Mitt was running, and he was near the back of the pack, and he said, basically, who would want the endorsement of losers like Bob Dole? In 2012, he cheerfully touted the fact that he'd been endorsed by Dole and McCain.
Oh, my.
Yes, Congressman Bratt had other things to talk about.
There are some people who might actually be impressed by that, and none of them are in this room or on the phone.
Are
I
any
can't
of them
find
on
any.
Alive?
Alive, yeah. Well, there's the establishment folks and the GOP-E, if you like, who are...
Well, Kim, you
Yes?
come from a much more liberal part of the state than from where most of us are, out that away. Mm-hmm. You just said that you can't find anybody that was impressed. I would think that there were much more moderate Republicans out your way that would have gone, yes, I think.
I think there are plenty in Connecticut that might be thrilled by that. From
Oh,
where I
yes,
originally
lovely.
came from. There are plenty. I think the entire Connecticut GOP establishment very, very happy with Jeb Bush and that ilk. And I think even New Hampshire GOP, there's plenty of those. But I personally don't know anybody
Those people
who's for
who-
Jeb or Kasich or Christie or any of the guys down, below the 5% mark.
Yeah.
Don't know anybody.
I have to say, you mean those people who lost their website for a little while yesterday?
Yes, absolutely. Didn't pay the bill. I wonder why, because nobody's sending them any money.
Yeah.
Why would you want to?
Somebody had to pony up.
Well, you know, I keep getting these appeals from Kelly's campaign for money to help her fight off the liberals, and I said I'll send you money to fight off the liberals when you send me a candidate who can beat them.
Yeah,
That was nice.
Yeah.
You need to post that.
I will.
Thank you.
Well, you know, we are the anti-Kelly website, so
Heck, we're
Oh,
the
we do?
Antichrists here.
Do we have that?
we are that.
Oh,
We
are.
we
Okay,
are
I thought
that.
maybe you were
We are
doing a
that.
whole
And you know,
URL dedicated.
Unfortunately, she has made it necessary for me to spend more time picking on her.
You started this with your sidecar buddy.
that was him.
No, wrong again. It was Tom.
Oh, was it
That
Tom?
was
Tom?
Tom
Flaherty?
Flaherty.
Oh, I
that-
thought that was you.
No, you've said that before, and I said,
You know, Wallace and Gromit, England. You know,
I send the credit where it's due. Tom Flaherty did that rather excellent Photoshop of Kelly in the sidecar with McNasty as Wallace in his sidekick.
Well, I hear she's changing her name to Why Not?
yeah. You call her Kelly McWynot, and that makes because it's got wine in it, and it's got McCain, and
That's right. And
And it's
anything
and not
that
conservative.
the left asked her to do, she says, well, why not?
yeah, exactly.
So the Senate is in balance, right? So what happens? What do you guys think if it is Kelly, which it will be, versus Mags?
She
Are
loses.
you guys going to abstain? And what if it can flip it? If you can flip it, we lose the R's lose the Senate.
I have already said I will not vote for Kelly Ayotte. Period. I
She
will
will-
not
she
vote
can't
for
win.
the Democrat, but I will not vote for Kelly Ayotte.
The base
and
and
all
the
I have to say
Libertarians-
is Walt Havenstein and Scott Brown.
Scott Brown. That's
We
right.
did it
That's
once.
right.
We'll
Yep.
do it again.
She-
And until the NHGOP gets it and starts putting up candidates that I can really get behind instead of having to hold my nose, that's it.
So does
I'm
everybody
voting
feel
for
like
Hannah Dustin.
Hannah Dustin.
I like that.
Axe the hacks.
So, yeah, well, I just, you know, I look at what happened to Frank when he lost, and if he gets the nomination, he'll lose again. Because the
he's
base,
not this time.
The base won't vote for him. The base in New Hampshire, the Libertarians, the Conservatives, they will not vote for her. They just won't do it.
I think Dan Innes will actually make it this time, and in spite of his background, I think he's more conservative than Frank.
Well,
Fiscally, definitely.
It's a low bar.
It is a low bar. It is a very low
There's
bar.
also Pam Tucker who's looking at it. I mean, I'm quite sure that we're going to see 2 or 3 others who have yet to surface to come in, and it may be a very interesting race.
Feeding frenzy.
It will be a feeding
And this
frenzy.
is work for the 603 Alliance, which is to help to vet, present, and run a caucus for the statewide offices and the congressional seats to attempt to get a conservative to bubble up to the top of the stack.
I think that's true, and I think it certainly has put a shot across the bow and a shiver into their timbers at the NHGOP that people like us do that again. Do it again.
Ooh, you wordsmith, you.
Shiver me timbers.
Shivering me timbers.
When I met
Jim,
Jennifer
I'm out there, I
Horn,
can't see.
what was that?
I shivered.
Yeah.
When I met Jennifer Horn the first time, I think it was at a Mitt Romney event up here a couple of years ago. And I shook her hand and I said, I just moved here from Connecticut and I want to help you pull New Hampshire further to the right. And she looked at me like I had 3 heads,
There
didn't
you
know
go.
what to do with that. And she was like, thanks.
All right. We're going
That's
to take
our
a
Jenny.
really short break. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Hopefully this works.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Why are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
GrokTALK.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is GrokTALK.
No, we're not in a break. No, we're not. We're not in a break. We're not going to break. Now we're all back. Here we go. Everybody's back. We're just going to talk through the whole show.
We got customers on iTunes and stuff.
Yeah.
So at the Wednesday night Republican meeting in Belknap County, I asked Pam Tucker why she wasn't thinking about running for Senate rather than for Congress, because we need a more conservative senator. And I was shocked when she responded that she has publicly endorsed Kelly Ayotte, who she thinks is our best chance for beating Hassan.
She's a little premature with that.
I told her, if I think she's probably going to lose anyway, and I'd much rather pull the handle to vote for someone I want and who loses than pull the handle for someone I don't want who loses. But it seems to me it's our job, part of our job, to get a better candidate to win the primary.
Kelly Ayotte will lose. The only question, and I mean that as in, I'll make a large bet on that if necessary. Kelly Ayotte will lose. The only question for the Republican Party is whether it's smart enough to pick a better candidate in the primary so that it doesn't lose the general.
I am really shocked that Pam Tucker said that, and that points to a fundamental in her logic. I've said for years now, winning is only a precursor. It's what you do afterwards that's most important. And what we've seen out of Kelly Ayotte is not what I would consider stellar as far as afterwards. I mean, all you had to do is look at Granite Rock, and you know where we stand on this. And for Pam to say that, to endorse that afterwards that Kelly Ayotte has presented, gives me grave misgivings about her running for Congress. I mean, that almost takes her off the... And I like Pam. I think her history is good, but to go with the politics instead of with the principles, big mistake.
It's a Kasich move. That's what it is.
Well, no, it's just a political move.
Well, but it ties into what we were just talking about, right? I mean, it's just more of the establishment as opposed to a principled conservative. They're going... I don't know, Pam.
What is that, an oxymoron?
I'm sorry. I missed what you said.
There are some?
Principled conservatives? Or principled Republicans?
You just dissed the whole room there, Susan.
Now, boys. You know me, I don't give a darn about D.C.
Correct.
Okay? This is all great. This is all wonderful. But if we can't build a wall around New Hampshire and pull up the drawbridge, really doesn't matter. We get all this distraction looking at D.C. and getting our knickers all in a knot because we get to shake some presidential candidate's hand, when in fact the folks in Concord are the ones that make our lives bearable or not. We are faced with, make no mistake, Medicaid expansion being finally rocked into law, etched into granite, after the first of the year for two reasons. Number one, Maggie Hassan wants it behind her during her run. And secondly, because Papa Smurf doesn't want baby Huey Chris's fingerprints all over it. We're going to be absolutely ruined. We're going to be faced with sales tax or an income tax. And I don't care what happens in Washington.
Well,
I don't want to move again.
No, you're right, but
we should all go to Texas, Susan.
Yeah. I think what we can do, though, is that since the Sununu family has heartily endured John Kasich, we should just continue to wrap Kasich around the Sununus over and over and over again.
That's a good idea.
Oh, we are doing that.
It's already done that.
Yeah.
Check.
Not enough.
But you are right. I think we all ascribe to the screw DC, save New Hampshire, Susan.
Yeah.
But the problem...
I'm just trying to fix this. So that...
But the problem is that what happens in D.C. does affect us here in New Hampshire because we don't get the right folks down to D.C. from New Hampshire.
Right.
And that's a big part of the problem. They keep bringing this stuff back.
Yeah, but we've got a legislative session that starts the first week of January.
Yep.
That's going to ruin us. Forget 2016 elections. Forget the first-in-the-nation primary. What happens in Concord in the general court in the next 4 months is going to determine whether we have a Republican or a Democrat elected to the Senate matters or not.
Well, you're absolutely
mistake, fellas and girls.
You are right. Now, the problem comes up, given the cast of characters have already been elected, and we've got the Jaspercrats running the Republican side. It's going to be very hard to stall it in the House. We already know that with Jeb Bradley and Chuck Morris and Nancy Stiles. And
it's not a tumor.
With the rest of those,
it practically is. That's the problem.
I'm working on sound. Sorry, go ahead.
With the rest of that cast of characters, it's a sure bet in the Senate, even with the newest folks that we helped get elected earlier. But how do we? The only place to stop them is in the House, and how are we going to do that when we have a Democrat-appointed Speaker of the House with an R after his name?
I can't go stand on the curb outside John Kasich's house and have an impact. I can do that in New Hampshire. Okay? I can do that. I can stand on the curb in front of some of these folks' houses, and I can call them on the phone, and I can do all kinds of things, and I can get their attention. I can explain to them that this is not a good idea.
Right.
And that if you want to keep your seat, you need to do the right thing. Doing that in Washington, nobody cares about New Hampshire. Come on. Per capita, first-in-the-nation primary just puts money into Sununu's pocket to give to Kelly, and it keeps us from being able to fund decent statewide candidates.
You make a compelling point about D.C., Susan, because one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize about Washington, D.C., while the economy is in the toilet elsewhere in the country, guess where it's booming? In D.C. They're building, they're hiring, the money's flowing.
That's true.
It's a
Hunger Games.
Yeah,
it is the Hunger Games, and we're District 12.
That's right. Yeah, pretty much.
Long live Pan Am.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Dots.
But
may the odds be in your favor.
Having said that, Susan, we need to work really hard to elect a House and a governor that are going to stand up to D.C. and are going to reduce our own costs here so that we're not dependent on D.C.
We take 40% of the state's revenue in federally laundered money.
Correct.
But we also need to send people to D.C. that will do less, even if they won't actually reverse course.
Yeah.
She's unconvinced. All right, I'm not going to win that argument.
No, you're not. So, boys and girls, it just got real in all kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do about it? This is great fun, but what are we going to do about it?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We do have to call folks. At least I don't have to call as many folks because my direct representatives are voting the right way. I can depend on. They are the people that I vote for because I don't have to worry about their votes. But it's a case of how do we get to the other folks that don't represent me directly to get them to change their minds.
Bless you.
And I think that's the question for a lot of us, unless you happen to live in that district where they have just gone off the reservation.
Well, you just point out to them the error of their ways every day of their miserable little lives.
Or we just make it miserable?
Yeah, we can help make it miserable. That's what we're doing. That's what.
Remember, they only understand pain. So
well, that's why I just applied a little pain to Gnomeville this morning.
Gnomeville,
the gnome of the north.
For those of you who aren't familiar, that's governor.
That's our diminutive ruling class Governor John H. Soon gnome.
Yes, he's the empire's representative to New Hampshire, the GOP empire, and he does their bidding and at the expense of everybody else in the state.
Yep,
and it doesn't work anymore, and he's about to reach the point where he wants to dissolve the people and elect another.
That's right.
And now we're back to Louisiana and the importation of 6,000 Syrians. Yay, Susan.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in New Orleans for many, many years.
You didn't say it right.
New Orleans.
There you go.
Well, she lived
Well-
there, though, for many, many years.
Ah.
She can say it any way she wants. I've never been, so I...
The year that I moved there, and it wasn't my fault, although we probably could tag it on me, the oil industry collapsed, and most of the professional folks in New Orleans left because there wasn't work anymore. The oil companies left, the offshore rig guys left, support companies left, and you had a town that had nothing to offer except once a year go out, get drunk, and throw up on the shoes of tourists, because the tourists would be too embarrassed to tell their friends back home, and everybody thought Mardi Gras was a great thing.
Well, don't forget tossing the beads up to the balconies, I mean.
Yeah, if you pull your shirt up. But the thing is that doesn't sustain an economy. So they said, well, let's bring in a casino. There you go. Let's have casinos and the ability to take mixed drinks in a plastic cup out on the street, which should be anybody's right. I don't have a problem with that. But New Orleans is a place that lives and breathes on money laundered from the feds. Now, what do you reckon New Orleans is being paid to take those folks?
Mm-hmm. Of course they're being paid, but one of the weird things is, why would they pick New Orleans?
It's warm. They just dump them off the ship. I don't know.
No. There's a reason why they picked New Orleans. You have to think about that for a moment. I would think that there's a couple reasons why.
Share.
It's been a Republican state.
What do you guys think? Before I...
Jindal, is it a knock on Jindal?
Well, I have a feeling that every time they pick a spot like this, it's for about 6 different reasons. And if they can kill 2, 3, 4, 5 birds with one stone, then go right for it. But if they're plunking in a whole bunch of people in Bobby Jindal's backyard, he's a noisy guy. I know he's on the kid table all the time for the debates, but he's a noisy guy. He might be an up-and-comer later on because he's still getting into this whole presidential thing. So I think they plant a whole bunch of people, and like everybody's been saying, they're 18 to 30.
Yep.
They're men.
Yep.
They are, by all accounts that I've read, they're religious. They're not like the people that are in New Orleans. They're not like that natural population down in New Orleans.
So they're going to demand an end to Mardi Gras, just like they tried to demand an end to Oktoberfest.
Well, doesn't that hurt the identity of New Orleans to move? I mean, it's all alcohol, it's all party, and for the most part, Muslims don't believe in that stuff. They don't like that stuff. They would want that stuff to stop. They would want a safe zone for themselves in New Orleans.
I'll be happy to provide.
This is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
Well done, Steve. I would be happy to provide a fleet of rowboats for said invaders. Just after they discover
pierogies, come on.
Just after they discover that without the aid of any bureau, New Orleans is the place for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and maybe explosives.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and
which may be turned against them.
Well, it's actually warm weather.
That's true too.
And it's not going to impede the movement of folks across the South, out of New Orleans into Texas or Mississippi or Alabama or those parts, or even Mexico.
I hate to jerk the chain a little tight, but did you see what happened up in Michigan this past week or so, where it's not Hamtramck, Michigan, where the city council is now owned by Muslims.
Yeah.
And one of them already outside of
Mm-hmm.
Dearborn, and one of them already made an implicit threat against everybody else. We're now going to show the Polish and everybody else, because it used to be a high Polish percentage population, and a lot of people. I did not know that, but a lot of people went when they heard that, and obviously the PC police came in like. CARE, the Center for Arab American Relations, kind of swept the street of that thing. But, we just have to wait and see what's going to happen.
It'll get ugly. People are going to die in the streets. Anyway, we're going to take a really, really short break because I think I fixed the audio. But we are not on Spreaker right now because that whole thing was messed up. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Mark Stein wrote, in response when asked about the campus PC culture on the Hugh Hewitt Show, he said, well, I think we're actually seeing the rise of a kind of incipient baby fascism, and I don't use that term lightly. I mean, the ruddy glow of middle age is still on my face. I'm reasonably confident that I can still outrun some of these mobs if I have to, but in 20 years' time, I won't be able to. And I'm concerned. If you look at the scenes from the University of Missouri where the so-called, actually a journalism professor is calling for some muscle to kick out the journalists, or the scene from Yale where they're standing around and intimidating the professor they disagree with, we have basically raised a generation now that prioritizes identity group politics over free speech, and that is going to be a tragedy for the world.
Here we go with the precious snowflakes that are now in the same path as Mao's Cultural Revolution. And
there is
very good.
The dean of students at Claremont College was forced to resign because of a nice little Facebook post that she was just like, well, I can't wait to listen to you and hope we can all get along. And they like rocks and sticks and pitchforks and
because she didn't emphasize how bad things were for something that most of us would pass off, and she didn't do it fast enough. The same thing happened in Yale, where there was like, hey guys, it's Halloween, costumes may offend, and then you've got that little twerp screaming at the guy she helped hire.
The problem in Claremont is, and he goes on to explain that he says it's presumably over some cultural appropriation thing that is, it's racist for two young ladies to put on sombreros and fake mustaches. Whereas if they'd said they were transitioning into men, then it would be okay to go around in fake mustaches. And if they were transitioning into becoming Hispanic men, then it would be okay, presumably, to wear sombreros. So the internal contradictions of these identity group politics were where it's okay for Caitlyn Jenner to be culturally appropriating by getting out Grace Kelly's 1954 corset and posing in it on the front of Vanity Fair. The cultural appropriation, gender reappropriation is okay, but if you put a sombrero on your head, it's the biggest crime of all.
Well, you just mentioned Caitlyn Jenner. You know she was chosen as Woman of the Year?
And now the transgender community is all up in arms.
Well, yeah, because you know what
and
that
the feminists.
No, the feminists are. The lesbians and the feminists, not the transgenders. The lesbians and the feminists.
By choosing
gender appropriation.
By choosing Caitlyn Jenner, they're basically saying, oh, look, it's a man, and he's better at
everything.
Being a woman than women.
And there's a salon writer who says that actually your chromosomes do not determine your biological sex. Oh. Now, I get told all the time, I don't have the smarts to talk about this, but with a degree in biology where I did microcellular investigations, I hate to break it to that nitwit. Yes, chromosomes count.
Yes.
If you're XY, the X and the Y, they make a big difference. And I just keep going. How much further, and with that, and with the cultural appropriation, everything else, the real big push is by the left to go further into relativism, where when you look at it, nothing matters except freedom for me to demand that you give in to me. That's what freedom seems to be. Somebody else had that. I got to find that quote again. It's not freedom for me to do or say what I want. I have the freedom to demand that you guys make me feel good.
When you talked about Mao, you touched on that a few minutes ago as a little quick thing, but that's very true what they're doing, right?
Correct.
Yep. And it's all related. There's a lot of facets to it. One is...
For the people who are too young, which is most of this college nitwits, explain Mao's Cultural Revolution.
Well, the relationship was that you must kowtow. You must kowtow to me, the rule, right?
Yeah.
And that's like that, and it's manifesting itself right now, and we're seeing it. Now, before we go into it further, there's a few facets. One that's kind of delicious is that This is of their own making, right? I mean, they're eating their own. They coddled these people on these liberal campuses for years and years and years, and they sent these people home, and they raised these little kids, and they come back, and they turn on them. This is very. I mean, it's kind of, part of me is pleased at this because they asked for it and they're getting it good and hard, right? The other part is this relates to leftism, and whether it's statism, because I don't want to confuse things, whether it's Mao or even goes back to the Jacobins and the terror, when rules are arbitrary and capriciously changed and mandated, they turn on you like that. I mean, remember Robespierre? He was part of the terror, right? And then all of a sudden, he was on the wrong side all of a sudden, and there goes the guillotine.
How dare you bring up Jacobins and Robespierre and all that stuff? Don't you know that we are the uneducated redneck clingers
Right.
that aren't
unwashed.
unwashed and uneducated? Susan, you must have something to say on this.
Mais oui.
No, I look at this.
Sure, of course. It's just a question of who gets to stay in charge the longest.
That's it.
That's all it is. They take turns, and if enough stuff doesn't get to go around for free, and then they start getting greedy, and they go and take it over again.
Well,
I say build a wall, pull up the drawbridge.
That's it.
Okay.
The government operates on, it's good that we're talking about this because I see the Hegelian dialectic here, You can't have a discussion like this without throwing in the Hegelian dialectic because remember, there are some that are free and there are some that are slaves, but none of us can be truly free until we're all slaves first. I mean, that's how.
That's why they eat haggis, right?
Yes.
I see what we're seeing right now is the culmination of the self-esteem, educated, everybody gets a participation trophy moment in the culture, intersecting with the leftism brought about by the Frankfurt School that moved here from Germany. You just can't make this stuff up. The Frankfurt School folks left Germany to get away from nationalist socialism. They centered in California, which even back then in the 30s was a fairly libertine area, and they were so upset about it. They were the Islams of their day, I guess, or the Muslims of the day, that they moved to Chicago, and then they started the rampage along with the Italian socialist Gramsci, who said the economic class warfare won't work in America. Take over the cultural institutions. So they did, and now we're seeing the culmination of that, of these leftist professors educating the show-up kids, and, oh, aren't you special, and this is what we're going to get. The problem is they're coming out of those institutions fairly soon. And one of two things is going to happen. Either that's just going to grow bigger and bigger and we lose, or they're going to be so wrecked they are going to go back to mommy and daddy's basement because the rest of us are going to look at them and go, screw you.
Well, here's the problem. Mommy and daddy's basement is metaphorically the government, right? And that's where this all comes out to dependency. This poor woman at Yale was offended, and she wanted her safe space. Why? Because she was never challenged. She had a helicopter parents probably her whole life. She was never uncomfortable. She never knew how to resolve anything on her own without shrieking and screaming. So she's dependent and she's scared. So she flips out. Now, when she graduates, there is no mommy and daddy except for Big Gov.
And there's nobody going to employ her either.
That's not true.
Right.
I work with a person like this who's.
She can be
what, guys?
She can be a community organizer.
Yeah.
Well,
when
eventually.
your behavior is never corrected, you don't know any better. And when SATs have been replaced by T-ball, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
Yep.
You get arrested for yelling at your kids at Walmart.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons God did not give me children, right? I'd have been up on charges 4 decades ago.
Well, I think we're starting to see that the old adage of spare the rod, spoil the child is coming true. Whether the left wants to dismiss that piece of biblical knowledge at all, we're seeing the fruits of it, or actually the kind of dried up, rotten fruit. Yes.
I think the left is seeing it, though, because we are starting to see some people commenting, people on the left saying, well, I can't speak on a college campus because they don't like some of the positions that I hold on things, so they're going to boycott me. Alan Dershowitz, I had to write this down. Wall Street Journal the other day was talking about, he was asked to come on a campus to speak about something, and there was a group of individuals who didn't like him. So they created the happy face with the Hitler mustache depicting Alan Dershowitz because they didn't like him. So they were making him be Hitler, Alan Dershowitz. And he's on the left, and I find that hysterical.
And he's Jewish.
He's Jewish.
And he had family members that died in the Holocaust.
Right. So
and he thinks that Ted Cruz has the most brilliant mind he's ever.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's fascinating to me when you see people on the left that are starting to say, wait a minute, it's not just us. It's not just people on the right that are saying this is wrong, this is a bad path we're going down. And I have to laugh because when I graduated from college, do you know who my commencement speaker was?
Don't tell me Dershowitz.
No, it was Bill Cosby. And I have to laugh because I'm thinking, what?
Come over here, I got some roofies.
I know. It just.
Oh my God.
Full circle.
Jeez. Well, folks, gird your loins.
What do you think they're going to do with this observation?
I don't think they're doing much with it now. I think this is just the beginning of them seeing it. I think that once they do fully realize that there's a problem, their solution's not going to be what our solution is. It never is.
You know they're craven. They're craven. Look what happened with the cartoonists.
Their solution will be government-padded shackles.
Yes, there we go.
Yes.
That's right. Their solution
will be padding for the shackles so that they don't get chafed.
Right.
I
won't go away.
Well, that's also demonstrated by that professor at Yale when he threw his wife under the bus a few days later after
Over a costume,
and he's like, "Well, I'm really sorry I did this. Here, take my wife." Essentially, is what he said.
Take my wife, please.
She's the one who did it. Stone her.
She's a witch. Burn her.
So that's.
Oh my God!
It was like a bad hitting.
But don't wait for the left to do anything.
It goes back to what you said. That student, and I can't remember her name, and she comes from a privileged family. She thinks college is supposed to be a healing place. That's the new phrase, a healing place.
Oh, don't forget the clay jars. Got to make some clay jars.
The only thing you should be getting healed from in college is the awful education you got from the union-run public schools.
Oh, right.
And people expected to be challenged in college. If you don't expect to be challenged, you shouldn't be there, precious snowflake.
Well, it goes back to the self-esteem. They've always been told you are special, you are the best. They haven't been challenged. They haven't been put into bad circumstances. They haven't been told your ideas suck.
Well, I think if
defend your ideas.
If there were bad circumstances, they didn't resolve them themselves. Somebody else resolved it for them. That's the problem. They don't know how to deal with confrontation with somebody else. So they seek somebody, a third party, to play the umpire.
Well, it's monoculture. Here the left talks about diversity ad nauseum. And yet they don't understand they're immersed in a monoculture. And then, because we conservatives have been picked on intellectually for what we think is right, the principles, Steve, we've gotten used and had to figure out how do we defend it in an...
Put that in front of the camera.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, we'll do that as I keep talking. We've had to learn how to actually figure out how to defend our arguments with rational logic. We've been challenged, and now, anybody in this room could slice most of them to pieces.
If you had told me it was easy as just going la, I would have saved myself a lot of reading.
And you could have had a successful thesis without defending it.
I could have.
And the best example of this was that video, that 9-minute video I put up with Neil Cavuto and Keely. I guess at the time it was Martin, but now I guess it's Mullen.
We're going on break in 10 seconds.
Keely Mullen, who from the Million Student March, who said, I want free tuition, debt reduction, and $15 an hour. And Neil Cavuto, simple questions, just demolish her. So many deer in headlights moments in that 9 minutes. I just laughed my full head
We're going to
off.
be right back. Susan, thanks a lot.
Let me leave you with this.
Please.
What are we going to do about it?
Well, we're going to talk about that in the next hour. Right?
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
This is Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, it is Grok Talk. We are in Concord, New Hampshire, 8 North Main Street, CNHT, room full of people. Yes, we have Skip Murphy, we have Don Ewing, we have Mike Rogers, we have Kim Gilbert, we have Scott Morales, and of course Richard Olson, myself, Steve McDonald, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Ustream, YouTube, GraniteGrok.com, and we are on Facebook and Twitter. The Spreaker feed is down, so you will have to listen to this as a podcast. I apologize for that. I can't do anything about it. Something's going on, and I can't fix it. But I got everything else working. And Kimberly's with us, I think.
Good morning.
Good morning. You sound strange. Something wrong with your phone?
Underwater.
Sound like you're underwater.
I'm my phone, and I have you on speaker.
Oh, see, that's going to never work.
Yeah, no speaker.
It's hard enough with a cell connection. So anyway, we will include you in our conversation, and thanks for calling or being here with us. We had Susan in the first hour, and that was great. All kinds of technical screw-ups on my side, but things are looking a little bit better. Now, we do have Kimberly with us for one particular purpose, although we'll probably wander far afield like we always do, and that is to talk about Governor Hassan and heroin in New Hampshire. Kimberly? You there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm taking deep breaths first.
Oh, okay. You're taking heroin. No, you're
You're taking.
I have to pay attention to Rule 1. I think that's the curse word rule.
Thank
right?
you. That's the
That
curse word rule, yes. Say words like fudge.
Yeah.
And gosh. And darn it.
Dang.
Yeah.
Farging works, too.
Farging. Oh, my stars and garters.
Dangerously.
Yeah. Farging ice
When my
holes.
nephew was 8 years old, he was saying, "What the fudge?" My sister wasn't too happy with that.
No, but you're older than 8, so we'll let it go.
So, Hassan, of course, came out last week or the week before, and she came out and said she wanted the Board of Medicine to make all these new rules about prescribing opioids and blah, 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 blah. So the Board of Medicine said screw, and, she had a 12-page thing that she wanted done. I think that was made up by her useless drug czar that we will be paying for starting next year. And the Board of Medicine said, no, we're not doing this. It's immature. It's rushing too fast. So they put in a couple of things that they recommended, but that was it. Not anything to do with hers. Then she came out and she wanted the executive council, which all the morons voted for it, except for Gary Daniels, or Dave Wheeler.
Dave Wheeler.
I always confuse those two. To hurry up and rush through a legislative session because Maggie Hassan wants to be, purish. She's trying to do something for New Hampshire. Except she ignored it when she vetoed the budget all last year. And let's face reality. Heroin addiction and overdoses have been going on for years. This is nothing new. 92 people in all of New Hampshire died from heroin-related overdoses last year. That is 0.0002% of the population. No, 0.0002, percent of the population. Drug-related overdoses in general was 0.0087 of the population. So we're already spending millions of dollars to stop this stuff from happening. It's not working, whatever we're doing. And so Maggie wants us to come forth in session and spend $11 million more dollars put more money after bad money that isn't working, and then push. This is the real key here. She wants to push Obamacare's Medicaid expansion to go through.
Of course.
Well,
That's the real key in this, her whole drug push. It's to get Obamacare's Medicaid expansion shoved down our throats, just like they shoved Obamacare down our throats.
Theodore Dalrymple has a book about heroin addiction that he wrote because he was in the National Health Service and he dealt with prisoners who were addicts and everything. And he has a very strong set of opinions on it. And I quoted a story that he wrote at The City that runs along those lines. But he outlined how the entire process of addiction, the government's response to it, the need for people to support that response is really just based on the concept that you can use heroin addiction as a way to grow government.
Right.
And that's what they did in England, and that's what they're doing in New Hampshire. We have airport in here again.
Look at the methadone program. That's just turning people off from one addiction onto another. And there have been stories where people they don't want to be on methadone anymore, but the methadone clinics won't help them get off methadone.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all it's doing.
This whole thing is really more perverse than that because it's a disease versus free will. Do I choose to take whatever it happens to be that can become addictive, or is it a disease for which I have no responsibility at all? Am I somebody who can rationally make decisions, or am I just a victim? And in today's politicized environment with the Democrats, that everybody has to be a victim. We just haven't proved it yet.
Stop it, Steve.
Say what?
I could see Steve on the video blasting some kind of mosquito or something.
It's a bug.
It's a bug, not a feature.
It's a bug. It's an airport in here.
And I was trying to be serious for a
I
moment.
Stop it, Steve.
You know, I heard.
Why is the camera on me?
I heard a statistic. Did you know that 100% of all those who never stick a needle in their arm don't become heroin addicts? That's just an amazing statistic,
isn't
to me.
it?
I've been stuck on this notion of why we as a society now have to put all sorts of money into a choice that one individual made at some point, and that's where I get stuck.
And this is the other thing. This is the other part of this whole opioid abuse. They're not just looking at the drug addicts, the people, like you said, who chose to take a drug that they know can kill them the first time they freaking try it. Mm-hmm. They are criminalizing law-abiding citizens. They are hurting law-abiding citizens who actually are in pain, which is the majority. The majority of people who take pain meds are doing it for some specific reason. They either have chronic pain, and the pain meds help them actually function like regular society, or they have cancer and they're dying and they need to take pain. One of Hassan's rules that she wants to put in place would limit the amount of pain meds a doctor can prescribe a month to 100 for every 34 days. Do you know how many pain pills that is? That's not even 3 a day. This is insanity.
That'll drive them to heroin.
Dr. Hassan, who's actually a lawyer and a political hack and not even a good governor, is inserting herself between doctors and patients and saying, I know better than you do what kind of pain pain meds your patient really needs. It's outrageous and it's disgusting.
This is just the rise of Maggie Care all over again, where she believed that because of the disparate pricing between hospitals, that she and government knew better. Remember, she tried to put together that board that would oversee, basically nationalize New Hampshire's hospitals, that this board would be determined by appointment, and it had the ability to tax the hospitals to tell them what they could and what they could not price for their procedures. And she's trying to do it all over again.
They can't give up control. Look, the proper libertarian position is you put whatever the hell you want in your body and you bear the responsibility for it. The libertarian position on medication is if you choose to take a painkiller, it's your choice. And and if the doctor thinks that, for the sake of argument, morphine is the required drug for your current condition, that should be the doctor's choice. He may have to defend it, but he shouldn't be automatically a felon for doing so. And what we're creating is drug war Mark II, essentially. How did drug war Mark I work out for everybody? It drove stuff that people used occasionally onto the black market, raised its price, and caused a crime wave. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to make criminals out of people who just need pain relief.
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing. And they focus on this poor young person died from heroin overdose. Well, one of the girls that died from heroin overdose had been saved 7 or 8 previous times from Narcan, but she kept going and doing it. Really, that's somehow my responsibility because she's irresponsible. I'm sorry, but if you're addicted, even if we push these programs into place, right, and we force people to get rehab, whatever, if a drug addict doesn't want to get help, they will not get it.
I'll go further and crueler. If in fact this was an attempt at an overdose, and they repeatedly attempt it, at some point, I'm going to say, put yourself out of my misery.
Let me make it personal. My son had an accident where he was up at a friend's house, put his foot through their ceiling, ignored it, and it was a big blotch. I just thought, he broke a lot of blood vessels under the skin. Well, it turned out to be much, much worse. 2 days later, he was under surgery, and they had to take all the dermis, all the skin away on his lower calf to where he had, basically a big hole in his leg like this down to the muscle. And he was in pain. The doctor, recognizing it, put him on Percocet, some other stronger stuff for a while. In fact, it was enough that they had to IV it in. Well, he had a PTSD episode. After he was released from one hospital, I had to take him down to the VA. They are already in this process of limiting pain medication. He went 2 days. While it's healing and doing well, it's still painful. It took him two days just to get a couple Tylenol. So we're back to the socialized medicine for which Maggie Care is trying to push us. And I can tell you, the only socialized medical situation in the United States where the government pays for everything, the vaunted single payer, it doesn't work. It didn't work. It failed my son. Now, he's now home. He can get the pain medication because it's still healing. But I'll tell you, I was ready to rip some throats out. Only because of where he was, the nursing staff was behind bulletproof glass. And I'm sorry. This is exactly what the left says. Do not put you talking to us. Do not put yourselves between a patient and a doctor. And then Maggie, an epitome of the left, goes ahead and does this. I'm sorry. It's wrong. This is where the libertarian says, let me take care of it myself. Let me determine. And I agree. Don't put the misery on me just because somebody else is screwing up, because there are people who need a lot of pain medication and they never get addicted. And when the pain is gone, they stop taking the pills and that's it. But because of this stupid victim mentality that we've been subjected to, everybody is no longer responsible for themselves, and the people who have to do the right things by the people who need the real help are forbidden to do so. And I'm so freaking tired of it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and give Skip some pain pills, I guess. I don't know. He's perfectly justified because he just went to the VA. He's been there, so he's pissed, and he should be. And you people out there need to understand that this is what your government wants for you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
This is GrokTALK. We are the guests. Yes. Let me push all these buttons. Welcome back.
And no, they didn't give me any medication.
We didn't give him anything for bipolar or any of that nonsense. He's fine. He's
no,
fine.
I'm
he's
not.
You're. I'm not saying you're not pleased or pleased that you're pleased. I'm saying that you're fine. You're a dad and you're angry, and you should be. That's
right.
The whole point.
And this is one of the things that, for those of you that don't know of it, it's something called Reason Magazine. It's the monthly magazine of a libertarian think tank. And they are all about minimal government, less interference in your lives. And their science correspondent, Ronald Bailey, for example, often opines on these kind of problems, and how the government gets in the way of people making rational choices in things like self-medication. And how the FDA gets in the way of people choosing when they're dying to try something radical.
Well, this isn't just that mentality, but it's also the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
For instance, he doesn't have any of his stuff. They decided to release him, and the doctor who told the orders told somebody to tell the ward, get his stuff together. His money, which was locked up in one place, and all of his clothes and everything else that they had taken from him in another place. And then I show up. They thought that I wasn't showing. I showed up at 5. They said, well, we weren't ready because we thought you were showing up at 7. Who told you that? But now he couldn't come home with his stuff because the guy with the keys, apparently there's one person with both keys, had left at 2:30. And if the flunky to the doctor had given them the right information at the right time, he would have been all set. But it's also all about the bucks. We're going back to the pain medication. They don't want to spend the money. And we're seeing this now with expanded Medicaid and everything else. It's not about the patient-doctor relationship. It's not even about the patient well-being anymore. It's about the bucks.
Rationing of it.
It's the rationing.
Which means you're going to get poor care or no care, and poor second-class medication.
Which is annoying because it's not like they don't want to spend money.
Or you end up on heroin.
Yeah. And
I happen to know something similar to your son.
Not the money for the solution, it's the money that gets distributed among all the providers in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you spend a bunch of money on something that doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Kimberly, I'm sorry if I took you off topic.
No, you didn't. And I was just going to say, it's not just Maggie. It's the federal government that is, and you'll notice this with a lot of the legislation that's coming through. The federal government, from the Obama administration down, they can't get certain things done, so they're pushing it down to the states to pass. Like this ridiculous drug database that we have. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys know about it because I think I've gone off on it before. Mm-hmm. It's a drug database where anyone who prescribes anyone who prescribes prescriptions has to report to a state kept drug database certain prescriptions, and that includes pain meds for your dog or your cat.
Yeah, because you might take those.
So your name, if you, God forbid, oh my God, you actually have some pain, is in this database, and it says all your information except why you're taking the drug. So the police are actually allowed to get access to this database, or someone can report to the police if they think you're a drug addict or dealer, and it doesn't say, why you're taking this drug. So you could be taking all kinds of pain because you are dying of cancer. Dying. And the only thing that makes you, get through the day, through the rest of your days, is taking massive amounts of pain meds. But it doesn't say that in the database because of HIPAA laws. But it says your name, where you live, what your prescriptions are. It's absolutely outrageous, and I don't understand why the ACLU hasn't done a lawsuit. I am willing to be in that lawsuit because although I haven't taken any pain meds since this was put into place, I have a herniated disc from a car accident back in 1992. The only thing, on occasion, when I get into the pain that I can't relieve through ibuprofen, heating pads, resting, I take Vicodin. I have not taken it in months because of this database, because it's none of their goddamn, business that I, on occasion, have to take pain meds for actual pain that I have a record of having since 1992 with a herniated disc. And this is one of the problems. They are making people like me into criminals. People like your grandmother with cancer, or your aunt who has rheumatoid arthritis, or the guy who has been in construction for years and his back is messed up, but he still works in it because that's what he does for a living, but he needs pain meds to be able to work in it. So they're criminalizing law-abiding citizens. They're hurting law-abiding citizens, all for a minority of people who choose to take drugs. And if you start taking drugs because of pain from some accident or something, surgery you had, and you find yourself addicted, that's on you to deal with it, or your doctor to talk to you to deal with it, because after a certain amount of time, you should no longer be experiencing pain from a temporary surgery.
Well,
Guys,
sometimes you have
but this isn't only for pain meds. They have Ritalin and other things like this. So if you have a kid who takes Ritalin because they have, I think it's for ADHD or ADD, whatever.
It is.
Okay, that's on that list. So if your child takes Ritalin on a regular basis to try to control ADHD, which I won't even get into that. That's a whole different topic. You're on that list. So this is what I'm saying. Like they are demonizing regular people. And I used to work. I was a consultant for a nonprofit insurance company in Massachusetts, and one of the things they did was they kept reports. And I know because I worked on the reports that tracked people what looked like drug shopping. You know, they went to this emergency room this day to get pain pills. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the insurance companies are already tracking it. Emergency room doctors and nurses treat you like a criminal until they realize that you're not. When you go, if you have to go in because you're in that much pain. I don't know if you guys have ever had to do that. I have, and the emergency room absolutely treats you like a drug addict until they realize, oh, okay, this person's good. This person is actually in pain. They actually need help. So Maggie's trying to say she knows better than emergency room doctors and nurses who have been dealing with this for absolutely years. And this is the problem. And they don't think about this. They're trying to help the small little help, quote unquote, the small percentage of society that's not going to be helped by what they're doing. And they're hurting the majority of society.
That's what government does.
You know what else the FDA did? DEA, not FDA. They made it so if you have a prescription for pain meds from your doctor, you can't just get them automatically faxed in to the pharmacy like you used to. You have to actually go to your doctor's office or have written prescriptions and bring them into the pharmacy yourself. So if you're in massive amounts of pain and you get to the point where you actually need your doctor to give you pain meds, it doesn't matter. You have to cause more pain to yourself, go visit your doctor, make that copay, then go all the way back home, and then go to the pharmacy. Whereas before, if you were in pain and your doctor knows you're not a druggie, whatever, they would fax it in for you.
That's true for a lot of drugs, actually, because I have some children who have some drugs that are on that list, and one of them has anger management issues, and if he doesn't get those, he gets really mad. And so he has to take them. But in order to get some of these, you have to go every single day. They won't auto-refill. Like, I take medication for ulcerative colitis. I never go to the doctor. I go to the doctor once a year just for a checkup, but CVS online, that whole deal, they call him to get it renewed. They fill it every month or whatever it is, and it just comes in the mail, and I don't have to do a damn thing. And it's wonderful. But my kids that have to take these, we have to call the doctor. We have to go down. They want to talk to them. They want to see how they're doing. There's a whole consult situation there. Then they write a prescription, and sometimes it's for the wrong amount of dosages, and it becomes this huge problem. Now, that's for something that has nothing to do with pain. Now, if you have to do that when you're in pain, you're on a rooftop with a rifle. I don't know how, eventually, it's just going to drive you nuts.
Well, and it'll also drive people to the street.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they'll go get heroin.
They're creating a whole new black market because when people who are actually in pain can no longer get the medicine they need because of these laws and these rules by morons, they are going to go to the street. And they are going to get the drugs from there. And when they realize they can't afford to get the drugs from there, buddy, I don't have these drugs, but I have some heroin for you.
Yep.
I mean, they're just making this exponentially worse. Because obviously we all know the war on drugs has not worked.
That's very true. I could speak to that. I have a very close friend of mine, his brother, or her brother, I should say, got hurt at work, almost sliced his arm off. And then he was put on meds. He got better, and then eventually they're like, you can't have any more meds. Or he had to go through these hurdles. He eventually just started getting into H over and over again. And he's dead now. He was 23.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he died. As his parents had tremendous blinders on. I didn't know him that well, but he was over for Super Bowl the other year, and just on the couch you could tell. I mean, he had one beer, but he was completely out, and I knew he was in trouble. And the parents had incredible blinders and kind of enabled it and looked the other way. And one day, the mom came home, and he was dead in his bedroom. That was it. And this is all because he couldn't get his painkillers.
Wow.
Eventually he got driven out, and that was it.
Right, and the doctor should help him to wean himself off when it gets to the point where he should no longer need them. But this is where the government shouldn't be intruding. I say the doctor should. I mean, that's just good medicine. And at some point, the doctor's liable to a lawsuit if he doesn't practice good medicine. But that doesn't mean that the doctor should be criminalized for prescribing stuff that's necessary and proper, or that we make criminals out of individuals for choosing the medication that they need.
And there
at the
certainly
time.
has to be a therapy component in there, because you do get addicted to some of these drugs.
You do.
And you can't just stop taking them.
No.
You just can't just cut it cold turkey. You need somebody to help you walk back down the slope to get off this crap. Because really, once you get addicted to some of these things, you feel pain to take the drugs. Your body just says, hey, guess what? We love these drugs. And it's not everybody, but it happens.
Yeah, and you try and stop it, even though you should have mended. You stop taking the drug, and you're still feeling pain.
And the point is that there are people who are in real pain who are suffering because they haven't properly addressed a problem with the people who no longer are in pain but think they are.
And when you said it's addictive, it's very true. Did you guys remember Bob Beckel? He was on the 5.
Yes.
And he disappeared for a while, right?
Yep.
Nobody knew. Well, I heard him on the radio the other week. And why he disappeared is he hurt his back really bad. And when he was younger, he was a hardcore drunk and cokehead and had addiction problems up the wazoo. He writes about it in a book. And he said he hurt his back really bad, and all of a sudden he knew it. He goes, within 5 days, I recognized the addiction. He went back and he said, I got to get off the television. I have to go. He put himself in the rehab.
Didn't Rush Limbaugh get addicted to painkillers?
It was coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he got
He
addicted
knew it was
to
coming.
oxy, and it
he's
made
like,
his
"That's
hearing
it."
problems worse.
Yeah. And the problem is, let me circle around just to make sure that we connect the dots once again, because all in the beginning of the show and all through it, we've been talking about the self-esteem children that have gone through. And on one hand, we see what's going on the campuses and not a thing from a supposed adults to correct this behavior. But in this conversation now, we see the government treating us as not of children that don't deserve to have self-esteem to be able to decide for ourselves. Where, we've got regular adults that the government wishes to treat as children. And the dichotomy and the hypocrisy just abounds.
It's all related.
It's kind of ironic. It scares me to hear about this little registry that Kim was talking about, because they're doing this with pain drugs. What's going to be the argument and the philosophy to do that for the rather benign drugs? Like, I take a bunch of drugs, and compared to pain pills, they're rather benign. They're strictly to manage cholesterol and diabetes and blood pressure, But
Testosterone is on the list, Rick.
What?
Not that you're
Testosterone?
taking it. I'm just saying.
Hang on, we're going to come back and visit that in a minute. We have to take a break. About a minute. Stay on the line. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We are there. Just look for Granite Grok. We are also on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Ustream, YouTube, and, of course, at GraniteGrok.com. Testosterone is on the list.
Testosterone?
Testosterone. Kimberly.
I don't take that.
I don't either.
Yeah, testosterone is on the list of what they're reporting.
Eventually, everything will be on the list, by the way. So.
Why?
Well, exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
And of
Why
course,
is testosterone on the list?
Yeah, Kimberly, why is testosterone on the list?
Because they don't want bearded ladies.
It makes you
That's why.
angry.
Because it's considered a certain. What they did is they took certain controlled substances. You know how they're labeled, like 2 through 4, whatever.
Yeah.
They just put those all on the list. Like, we want all these controlled substances from this list in this drug database. That's what they did. And like I said, Ritalin is one of them. Testosterone is one of them. I have to look through the list. I haven't looked through it in a while, but I just recently was looking through it again when I was writing about this, because it's ridiculous. And again, like I said, they have all information, including refills, overlapping refills, and everything on the
But
patient.
not why.
But not why.
Right.
That would be a HIPAA violation.
That
if
would
they
be a
said
HIPAA
why.
violation. Why do
Yeah,
you need these medicines?
Your name, your doctor, the prescriber, your prescription, that's not a HIPAA violation, but putting why, which would actually help, if law enforcement really is looking at this, if they looked down the list and they said,
Or if
okay,
hackers
she's in
want to
hos-
sell a list of who has the best drugs, they could hack the list and sell it to somebody, and people could go break into your house and take your medication.
There you go. That too.
So,
I mean, it's just bigger government designed to hurt actual law-abiding citizens and not actually help druggies. And the other thing is, it's getting pushed like this, like I said, to push Obamacare's medicated standard, because they're going to use the excuse that, well, Obamacare's medicated standard will help druggies. Really?
No, it won't.
Not at all.
It'll make it worse.
It will make it
Just
worse.
what it'll do. It'll make it worse.
So, but that's what they're trying to push for. And don't make no mistake, our buddy Papa Smurf's kid is in on it,
Yeah.
because he doesn't want to have this be, as I think Susan was saying this earlier, he doesn't want to have this be on his deal if he is going to be governor. Yeah.
So wait, when you say he doesn't want it on his deal if he's going to be governor, you mean he would rather any kind of Medicaid expansion or renewal happened before
Yep.
the election, so it wasn't an issue for him.
He wants a clean stable.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. But see, the thing is, guys.
Make sure you get those horses tied up before I get there.
But listen, the thing is, no one, not Maggie, not any Republicans who voted for it, no one, not one single person has said how we're going to pay for the hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to start becoming due to help pay for the people that already had insurance, but we took them off it to make them government dependent.
Yeah.
No one has said how we're going to pay for it. Not one of them.
And the government is now, the feds are now starting to think of lowering that 90%. Because remember, it was only for 3 years, folks. And I'm just kind of surprised that the money's lasted this long. Because look at, again, I go back to special ed. The feds were supposed to pay lots of money for that, and they haven't even come close to a third of
They raised the
that
debt ceiling. Come on.
Well, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? There's already hospitals that are considering opting out of Obamacare's Medicaid expansion. Why? Because they aren't getting paid what they were told they were going to get paid if they opted into this program. Dartmouth Hitchcock is one of them.
It's all the path to single payer.
And of course, the insurance companies are raising their rates. Why? Because the federal government, with a little bit of help from the Republican Congress, has finally said, no, we're not going to pay you those bailouts that Obama promised if you don't get enough stupid takers.
Well, not only that, but the risk pools tended to be to the older, more sicker people. And, you know, my sons went naked as far as health insurance were concerned when they first came out of the military. They're young. They're relatively healthy. Except for a catastrophic illness. They never got sick, didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. They said, why should I pay for something that I'm not going to use? That is a completely and eminently rational decision. And you're seeing people now, you know, what's the biggest specialty in medical practice now? Concierge doctor services. People would rather pay the doctors direct a few $100s a month instead of something else.
Yeah, those
I think it's a great way to do it.
Those places are popping up like mushrooms in the
was-
fall.
Well, the urgent
They're
care
just
stuff
everywhere,
and the urgent care as well.
Yeah, the urgent care means I can go and get seen for something basic without having to go to an ER, without having to have insurance, and pay as I go.
Yeah.
And you know, ultimately, the market will circumvent this if it's allowed to. And if you currently took your hands off and the regulations off, it'd shake out pretty damn quickly. But I bet these concierge doctors and urgent care centers would be a big part of the final solution.
There's a chart I need to put up. He's the head of the economics department at Harvard. And he put up a chart to show the economic impact on the different socioeconomic quintiles of Obamacare. And it's just absolutely astonishing. You see the lowest two, you see their relative income skyrocketing, and everybody else has gone down. This is nothing but a wealth redistribution process.
Whoa.
And it's not even helping because, as we know, there's a lot of doctors who aren't taking Medicare. A lot of hospitals aren't taking Medicare. So when the left says, everybody, look at the percentage of people who are now insured. Well, still, in absolute numbers, it's no better than it was before. And there's even if you're on Medicare.
Look how many bicycles we sold to fish.
Yeah. You're still not getting seen. The whole idea was...
It's worse than that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say it's worse than that because this is what happened. The middle class usually always had health insurance, right? We were willing to pay whatever amount of money it was, and it's increased over and over and over and over and freaking over, right? Actually,
over.
I used to live in Massachusetts, and before Romneycare, my health insurance the premiums only went up like 2% each year, so my company took the hit. They're like, we're not going to raise your rates this year because it only went up 2%. We can handle that. Romneycare went into effect. All of a sudden, we had deductibles, and we had to pay a lot more money. So we've all been seeing this for a long time, right? So the middle class always said, I'm going to buy insurance because it's responsible. I want to make sure I have it in case I need it. Most of us rarely ever need it. I certainly never used as much, except for maybe a couple years of what I paid into it, right? Obamacare comes along and says, we want to help the middle class, and we're gonna
Is that
make
your
sure
Hillary
everybody
impression?
stays-
Yeah, right. No, you're right. And like Obamacare, like UPS had to cut spouses out of their plans because it's so expensive for the unions and UPS, and the school districts are going there now too. We're already hearing from teachers unions locally that future plans may have to cut spouses out of the plan because they can't afford
sure
it.
Is ugly, isn't it?
Isn't it?
It's not just that. It's that. So the middle class, we're all paying. A lot of us lost our health insurance. We had to get outrageously expensive health insurance, but the deductibles went up and the out-of-pocket costs went up. So not only are we paying more for premiums, but we're paying more for out-of-pocket costs. What does that do? That makes people not get health care.
Well, people, you have to
people
get health
not
care.
go.
They fine you, but think about this. If you cut your spouse off, like I'll give you as an example. I don't have to pay for insurance from my employer because my wife has insurance through the school district. She pays $100-something a pay period for insurance. If that price isn't going to go down if it's just her. She's still going to be paying $100-something out of her paycheck. Okay, she might get a raise because she's in the school district. I haven't had a raise in 8 years because of the economy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a freaking job. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be one of the last people out the door if my company burns to the ground fiscally or economically or whatever. If I have to take up health insurance from my employer, it's going to be $100 every pay period out of my check. So not only are we no longer not covered, we are now losing $200 every pay period, which is almost $500 a month, that we will no longer have because the Democrats made health insurance better.
Yeah.
But when I say people don't get health care, I'm saying they don't go to their doctors and see their doctors because they can't afford it.
No, that's
true. I'm not saying they don't get the insurance. They get the insurance, but they're not actually getting health care. So we all were healthier before because we would go to the doctor because it didn't cost $70 for a specialist visit, which is what I pay now. And we got our taken care of and preventative and all that. But now we can't do as much because it's so expensive. It's unaffordable.
Well,
maybe we should
those-
just all live in the basement and take heroin.
Even with those on Obamacare, where this is the sign-up period, so we're seeing all kinds of commercials. Hey, it's affordable. They never say it's affordable because the rest of us are now unaffordable. But even those people are looking at, on a silver plan, they're looking at a deductible of $6,000, $8,000, and for some families, $12,000. They've got to spend $12,000 in a year before that Obamacare silver plan kicks in, and it's even worse on the bronze
I'd rather
plan.
not pay the insurance because I'm going to have to pay that much money out anyway
Be a really
before I get anything back.
really good time to play this.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Okay.
Yeah, I work for
or maybe this was better.
That's way better. That's more appropriate.
Yeah, so I work for a decent little left coast company, and they had to go through hoops and a new broker in order to keep insurance for their staff when Obamacare kicked in for companies because they got more than 50 people. And every year I live in fear and trembling that it's going to be either too expensive or have too high deductibles for it to be any use at all to me.
Yeah,
and you need it.
The
And I
first
need
year of Obamacare,
Mama's expensive.
Yes.
the first year of Obamacare, I was paying $1,000 a month for insurance. The next year, my insurance went up. It was going to go up to $1,200 a month. That's more than a lot of people pay for their mortgages across the country.
So you're not seeing that extra $2,500 a year in savings?
Don't get me started. I'll break rule number one.
We were already into this. Started. We've been talking about it for 40 minutes.
Yeah, but I'll break rule number one when we talk about
Well,
that.
okay, hang on a second. There you go. Now we're all set. Oh, I got to put her back in here. Okay, there you go.
Yes. Technology ain't it
Unfortunately,
wonderful
I
at
don't
times?
have a cough button or a delay, so I can't beep you if you say something inappropriate. But anyway.
I usually can self-beat myself.
Yeah?
Usually.
It only takes
Usually.
once. It only takes once.
Well, that's why we're on the internet, not on the air. At least the FCC can't regulate
Well, yeah,
us.
and then we're not on the air at all now, so except because the Spreaker stream was down, so we're okay. If you were to swear, we'd be good.
No, we're live on
It's like you're
Ustream.
encouraging me.
We might blush, but no, we're not going to
Yeah,
blush.
right.
All right, so we are heading into the final stretch of the second hour. I think we beat this. Well, we could beat this horse to death for weeks and days and months and years, but we want to see if we can move on to any other topics. Open it up. Somebody start.
Can I switch the topic?
Oh, sure. You're on the phone. Go ahead.
So, by the way, 10,000 Syrians were delivered to New Orleans today.
We talked about that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did you talk about that already?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You should listen to talk radio.
I was actually listening, but I was doing something at the same time.
So
yeah, Miss Susan
all right.
beat him to death pretty well.
You got another one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Another topic?
Yeah. Our break's got a topic.
Yeah.
Okay, I know you talked about Kasich.
This is a little more local. Yeah, the man with a perpetual frown. We talked about him early on. In Methuen, Massachusetts, you had a gentleman back in July. He jumped through Massachusetts' hoops to be licensed to carry a pistol. So he stopped at home. He stopped at the Irish Cottage in Methuen to have a cold one before he went home. And there happened to be two cops in there, Methuen police officers, a lieutenant and a sergeant.
On duty?
It doesn't say. What would one be doing at the Irish Cottage? At the end of the day. So, needless to say, they called the station. Hey, send a patrol officer. There's a guy here with a gun. So they send a patrol officer. Now, bear in mind, there's no law in Massachusetts that says you cannot go into a bar with a firearm if you have a licensed firearm. And you've said, Mother, may I, and they've granted you your wish and let you have a license to carry in the Bay State. How does this happen, So, guy goes into the bar, or the patrol officer goes in, questions the individual, determines he's broken no laws. So the lieutenant and the sergeant decide, well, we're going to take his gun anyway. And they confiscate his gun. They make him pick it up at the police station or what have you. So it's decided that this was misconduct by their chief, and they were suspended. The sergeant for 3 days, the lieutenant for 5 days, suspended without pay. And the reason is because they acted outside color of law. The guy broke no laws. They had no probable cause. No offense was committed. They had no reasonable basis to confiscate the firearm. Therefore, it is a procedural violation, and you guys are suspended. So what do? They appeal their suspension. Hence, which brings me to my blog that I wrote last week. Just in a nutshell, they hired defense attorneys, and under cross-examination, they hired an independent chief from a retired police chief from Tewksbury to independently investigate, and he found that the officers acted inappropriately, that they had no basis to confiscate the firearm. They had there was no violation, no crime committed, so they did it without cause. And they had these attorneys that were cross-examining this independent investigator. Don't you think it's stupid to drink alcohol while carrying a firearm? In other words, the bottom line is these cops had their own. This is an example, and what I point out in the Grok piece from this past week is that a prime example of ideology, personal ideology, becoming force of law when we pin a badge on people. So, that was the crux of what I wrote. So.
I think it's a stupid idea, so I can make law that says I'm going to punish you for having for it being a stupid idea.
I'm just curious, were the cops that were in the bar drinking, were they armed?
They wouldn't. Nowhere did I find anything that alluded to that.
I'm going to bet they were. I'm going to get they were, because as a person who carries almost everywhere he can and a few places he's not supposed to,
and a few places that
no, it's not illegal. It's just frowned upon.
A few places where there's no law says you can't, but
they don't. But the
wusses running the place would freak out if they found out.
Correct. Which is why I wear sweatshirts and baggy shirts and long coats and things like that. it would occur to me that once you start carrying, you don't stop
right.
carrying.
Yeah.
You always carry.
Yeah. I mean,
so I would bet that these officers, off-duty officers, presumably, were carrying in a place where they were drinking alcohol.
Oh, sure, but they're police.
Oh, that's
so,
true. They have
you know,
a badge.
They have a badge.
Authority.
And it's okay for them.
This is why I frequently denigrate these supermen who think that they can drive cars with microphones in their hand, but we can't use cell phones.
Right.
That they can leap tall buildings with a single bound, but don't you dare try it, buddy.
Well, this comes to the bigger point, and I think you're absolutely spot on. We've got Obama saying, well, the federal government will not defend a legally passed law, DOMA. Yeah. They declared it unconstitutional ahead of the time it went to the Supreme Court, so they stopped. Now, here in New Hampshire, we have the same thing. It's just unbelievable how D.C. and Congress seem to ping-pong this stuff between them, because the state AG just said that they weren't going to defend a law because he felt it was unconstitutional. Now, I've drawn a blank as to what it was. I went on a micro rant in the House when I heard this, because it's not the executive branch's purview to unilaterally declare a law unconstitutional. If you want it unconstitutional, put a case in front of the Supreme Court and let them do it, either at New Hampshire or the U.S. level. But to just say, we're not going to do anything, it comes to what we're now seeing big time. The breakdown of the rule of law, the respect for the rule of law, and what was said earlier, and I think, Scott, you were the one who said it, which is, it's wrong if I say that it's wrong. Now we're really graduating, I believe, into that venue of the strongman rule.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are doing that in government, you have the full force and majesty of the government to enforce your arbitrary law. Just look at Obama. Look at how many times his laws have been bounced out of the Supreme Court and his executive orders.
9 times.
9 times.
9 times.
10. Just happened again
Yes.
this week.
Not enough.
Not enough. Good answer, Don.
Well, the AGs.
But what was that law that just happened? I think it was Foster who said it.
Well, yeah, Foster is the AG, but the only thing I can think of that the AG is doing that's wrong is suing Croydon. For following the law, and I have a question here. The town of Croydon has used the law as written to send 4 students to a different school than the one that the state says they're supposed to send them to. It's not a public school, and they're using taxpayer money to pay the tuition, and the parents cover the difference if there is one. This happens with Pinkerton Academy. This happens in hundreds of schools all over the state. I want to know when Pinkerton and all these other schools are going to come out and defend Croydon, because if the AG gets his way, and this goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says Croydon isn't following the law, then technically none of those other schools are either.
That's right.
You can't use public money to pay private tuition, which happens across state lines. It happens almost every town in the state. And so what Maggie Hassan's Attorney General, former Democrat state senator, is going to do is try to get the Supreme Court or a judge in the state, right now they're in Superior Court, to say, no, Croydon can't do that. There's wide-ranging consequences to that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And where are all these schools on this issue?
They're like all the conservative students on some of these campuses, like Mizzou and Yale and Ithaca and everywhere else, where they have come out and said, because of political correctness, we aren't saying anything because we are scared. And all they have to do is point at the academicians that have been kicked out and the faculty have been kicked out.
It's
I think it is. This is the IRS rule. All over the
going full circle what we talked about earlier.
We make examples of a few to silence the rest.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. There was a Mizzou professor who said, I'm going to have the exam on the day that supposedly the KKK was going to do something. He said, I'm going to have the exam today. That's how you fight against bullies. You don't back down from them. You fight against them. And the media, it was the media, not the students really. It was the media, that left-wing media that came out against him and said he was racist. He was a white professor trying to make black students come to class. It was ridiculous. And he said,
you make him take tests on white paper.
Yeah, he's like, I'm resigning. Obviously, if this isn't work, and he's a beloved professor by all the students.
Yep. And he's going to be working somewhere else.
They They didn't accept
Oh,
his
no, they
resignation.
didn't.
Yeah.
No, okay.
They think
Did you guys see what I posted earlier? These Mizu students are pissed off that Paris happened.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
They're
I
mad
saw
because
that.
it stole all their thunder.
And that's
Yeah.
really is the point of this whole thing.
Yep.
It's publicity-seeking hounds to enforce their own self-worth and self.
But it's
we're
got to
back
be the
self-esteem
right
again.
publicity, because if you don't, they're going to bring in the muscle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they already got their trophy by getting the top two at Mizzou to resign.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but the problem is once you start taking heads, you just can't stop.
Didn't the
something.
football coach go too?
Yeah.
Didn't
You
the
can't-
football
you
coach
just
quit?
won,
he defended his players.
Yeah, 'cause that's the
I'm
Clemson
sorry.
game
I
today.
went to BU, and at the top guy, we called him the one-armed bandit, Silber.
Yeah, I remember.
And he was about as hard-nosed. I wouldn't use the other
John
part of the
John Bowtie Silber.
Yes, I'm not going to use the other part of the anatomy. I'll break rule number 1.
Yeah.
But a hard-nosed guy. And when they would, and I went to school there in the mid-'70s. So the hippie generation was just starting to wind down, but there was still a lot of activity. And he basically told the police, if they don't get out of their little tent city on our property, you ask them 3 questions, and if they say no to any of them, yank them. And when those people acted up, he expelled them. And I'm sorry, but when you've got a bunch of bratty little college kids, and now that I'm not one, I can look back and say, yeah, that's what a lot of them were, too full of themselves to know any better, skulls full of mush. And BU was a very liberal school.
Still is.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry, but when you act up, if these college bratty kids want the colleges to act in loco parentis for a healing space, then the academicians and the people in charge and the administration ought to say, fine, I am going to act like your parents. Congratulations. Careful for what you wished for. We're now going to deliver it.
Too bad they didn't do that at Keene State last year with the Pumpkin Festival. And
Well,
they didn't expel anybody. They didn't arrest anybody. But they're not going to have the
Oh,
Pumpkin Festival in Keene anymore.
They got arrested, and I think a number
Released.
of them got...
A couple of
They
people.
were not. I don't
They weren't
think any
prosecuted?
charges.
Well, they weren't, but I thought a couple of them did get expelled.
There was arrest, but I think they found that a lot of the students weren't even from Keene.
Right.
Well,
but
you
they
know-
punished the whole entire area
Town.
because they wouldn't have the Pumpkin Festival. We just simply can't afford the extra security. I'm thinking
Too much of a cost
it's
issue.
too much of a cost issue.
It's in Laconia
yes.
now, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's one day.
So I found my entry. It was
Okay.
on, what day was it on? The date's not up because I'm on an iPhone. But here's what
A little late for a phone call.
Gary Nolan, the defense attorney, had to say. He called the superior officer's
Hello?
suspension.
I'm sorry?
Hello.
Yes, it is.
This is Radical Moderate.
Hey. You can stop talking through that because he's on the air.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, well. you called.
Toast.
You called us with like 3 minutes left. What's up, Radmod?
Yeah, and I did that. I didn't want to interrupt. You guys were having a great go round. I just wanted to just take a minute and say thank you to everybody there. Your articles are fantastic. You guys do a great job. All of you. I enjoy.
It's our fan.
Well, yeah, it's very. I guess it's to me it's very heartening to have another voice. I guess the only voice in New Hampshire that is kind of spearheading what little opposition there is to kind of the destruction of what we used to know here. But I mean, you guys keep up the good fight, and I'll support you as much as I can. I urge everybody to support Granite Grok. I'd like to see one of these days you guys be on the air, radio-wise. I mean, I think you need to reach a lot more people.
But then we got to follow rules.
Roger.
I understand that. Believe me, it's not. It's not something that is easy. But I think the entire state really should have one voice that they have, that they can at least get a dissenting opinion on what's going on instead of everything being just jammed down their throats. So, but like I said, I just want to let you guys know everybody does a great job there, and keep up the good work. It's like I said, kudos to you guys. You guys are doing something while many people are just have given up, and so thank you once again.
Oh, we appreciate it.
You're welcome, Wayne.
Thank you.
Rad, thank you very much because a lot of times we don't hear from folks like you. We are getting more commenters, but I will tell you that we do get them when we go to the different events, and it is very heartening because it makes worthwhile all of the hours that we spend doing this stuff to be able to get that little bit of an acknowledgement. We don't get paid.
It's the currency of our realm.
Yeah, the thank you, much appreciated.
Yeah, that's
Well,
very true.
take care.
Alrighty, thank you,
luck,
sir.
Good luck and good health to everybody there.
You too.
Thanks, Red. Thanks.
And to you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. This is GrokTALK. We will be back next week.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.